No, it's not working.
Swap it out.
Hello?
There we go.
That's it.
A little too loud.
Okay. All right, so for the last couple months, we've been talking about the tentative tax levy. The first time we reviewed that, it was based on a potential referendum. Second time the board reviewed it and approved the tentative levy, we knew that we had not passed the referendum, and therefore the levy request could be lowered just a bit. And so this is the same numbers that we presented last month for the tentative. It's a 7% increase in the cap funds, which we only anticipate approximately 4% increase after the county reduces the levy. And when you consider the bond and interest levy as well, it shows a total of 5.88% increase, but we only think the increase will be 3.22%. As we've done in the most recent past, we want to show the fund balance as a percent of expenses so that you can see how we project our fund balances to be based on this levy. And new this year is PA Public Act 103-0394. And essentially, this is an analysis of our cash reserves in relation to our 3-year annual expenses. And as you can see down at the bottom there, it says cash reserve balance to expenditure ratio is 0.643, must be lower than 2.5 times our average annual expenditures. Reason being, if we're ever at this table and we see cash reserve balances over 2.5 times, it means we've got plenty in reserves and we're actually at risk for objections. So new this year, based on this act, we're going to show this during our public hearing each year.
So there are school districts that are approaching that are very close to us too.
That's right. And if you were, and if we were, you would have to put together a plan to reduce your fund balance or your cash reserves so that you're not at risk for something like this. And that's all we have.
Okay. Next, we have audience comments. Within our public hearing, this is the first opportunity for audience comments. Anyone wishing to address the board can submit a comment card available at the check-in table and give it to the Executive Director of Communications and Strategic Planning. The Executive Director will call community members who submit cards forward. They will be asked to introduce themselves and describe their relationship to the district. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and know that the board will be taking notes, but in listening mode only, and an appropriate response will be given in a timely manner. We ask you submit 1 comment per opportunity. This is the opportunity for the public hearing. Rebecca, do we have any comments?
We do not.
All right. Next, I'd like to ask for a motion and second to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's go back to our regular meeting. We're approaching our approval section. The approval of the agenda is number 1. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved. Kamalevich.
Second Moon.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any,
Sorry.
any opposed? Motion carries. Next, I have the approval of the November 18th regular meeting minutes. Ask for a motion and second to approve the regular session minutes.
So moved. Dolan.
Second.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Kamalevich.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Supos.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we're at our communications section. This is the superintendent comments. Dr. Deli.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. As is always the case, but I would say particularly during this time of year, I think it's important to point out that in our strategic plan, it really calls out continuing to develop partnerships with our community to increase opportunities for families and for the broader community. So it's creating that conduit with groups and individuals that are not necessarily associated with the school district, but certainly that's our focus. And we have some things that I think represent the best of our school district and the best of our community coming together that we wanted to share with you. And Raquel and Becca have some things they'd like to share.
Thank you, Dr. Deli. So here in are some photos we wanted to highlight events that our Spanish BPAC has hosted throughout the year so far. And in particular, they recently held an event on Friday where over 200 participants were in attendance along with 30 volunteers to celebrate in some meaningful cultural traditions. And our board member, Supos, and his family was there too to join in on the fun. And our Spanish bilingual middle school students who are part of the Pathways program have been truly invaluable at these events. They are dedicated volunteers who support the events by providing childcare and in any other way with activities that we're offering to families. And then this weekend, they called out very enthusiastically words in Spanish for the Loteria game. And we always partner with our library at these BPAC events, but specifically this weekend, they hosted a Spanish language read aloud to our littlest learners. They love being read to. They chose books in English, chose books in Spanish. And then again, on the right-hand side, you could see our middle schoolers who are, again, just invaluable with over 200 guests. We could not have done it with their hands, their systems. And then we're also truly thankful to our Glenview Police Department for inviting 36 local students to participate in their annual Heroes and Helpers event, where children had the opportunity to pick holiday gifts.
And then in addition to that, I'm pulling up my notes to make sure that I have everybody to thank. We recently held a coat drive with Youth Services and the Deborah Galfion Foundation. We had volunteers from our PTAs for Setup, GBS's Interact Club, and the Alliance of Asians and Pacific Islanders. So you can see there a group of high schoolers who dedicated their Friday after school to help us set up all of those coats that were donated from the community, either new or gently used coats, and also other winter gear. So we had so many families come through, and they were very grateful that day for the support. We passed them out in October, so they got them before some of our cold days hit. And then in addition to that, we had our PTAs who sponsored the holiday helper that they've done I think the last several years now. So I just want to give a big shout out to our PTAs for their support with that program, allowing gifts or resources to our families in support of their holiday season.
Thank you very much. So again, the best of Glenview District 34 and the community really coming together during this time of year. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I would just also add a happy holiday season to everyone in the community. If you're traveling, do so safely. And we look forward to seeing you back in the new year.
Thank you, Dr. Deli. We're back to audience comments. This is the first opportunity for audience comments in our regular meeting. Anyone wishing to address the board can submit a comment card. Do we have any comments?
We do not.
Okay. Thanks. We'll move along then to our consideration of resolutions. This is our consent agenda. We have the 24076 personnel report, the 24077 payroll warrants, the 24078 vendor warrants, the 24079 press issue 116, the 24080 2025 workers' compensation insurance renewal, the 24081 2025-2026 student building and fees, and then we have the 24082 the 2025-2026 calendar recommendation. Is there a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved. Or second. Third.
You guys each owe each other a large Coke. That's a large Coke.
So I have Supos' motion and second Baumstark.
All right, great.
good.
Gabby, can I have a roll call?
Baumstark.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Stefani.
Aye.
Supos.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Kamalevich.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll go to our consideration of other resolutions. we have the 24083 resolution to approve the 2024 tax levy. Does anybody have any questions for Eric after our public hearing and our 3 discussions before? Can I have a motion and a second to approve the 2024 tax levy as presented?
So moved, Kamilovich.
Second, Stefani.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Moon,
Aye.
Stefani,
Aye.
Supos,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan,
Aye.
Kamilevich,
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have a 24084 resolution to establish a fiscal year and authorize development of a 2026 budget. Are there any questions or discussion?
This is just so that Eric can stay busy, right?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
We want to keep him on task.
Really important.
Can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Dolan.
Gabby, may I have a roll call vote?
Stefani,
Aye.
Supos,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan,
Aye.
Kamilevich,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have the 24085 resolution designating the funds to receive a reduced extension if required under the property tax extension limitation law. Right?
Yes.
Any questions about that? I'd like to have Eric just give a brief synopsis of what that is.
So as we just mentioned, we're going to submit a levy request above what we think we're going to actually receive. So this is an instruction to the county clerk to say, when you reduce, because they will, only reduce in the ed fund, make it clean and easy for us to process. So this is just direction to the county clerk.
And then if we had any other troubles, we'd be able to transfer funds, correct? In the future.
Yeah, within certain
Within certain
limitations, there's
limitations.
always the ability to make transfers, correct?
But this is all about administrative simplicity on your end, right? There's no, There's
Exactly.
no financial reason other than administrative ease
No, and
to want to do it this way.
something I've been through before where they proportionately reduce in every fund, and then if the reduction is more than you want, certain smaller funds can get wiped out completely. So this is just a nice, clean, easy way that the county clerk has advised us to direct them.
Great. Can I have a motion and a second to approve the tax reduction as presented?
So moved, Moon. Second, Dolan.
Gabby, may I have a roll call vote?
Supos, Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan,
Aye.
Kamilevich,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Moon,
Aye.
Stefani.
Motion carries. Next, can I have a 24086 supplemental tax levy resolution? And that's, can you explain what that is, Eric?
Yep, so
everyone
this
knows?
is bond counsel advising us to pass a resolution each year following the last DSEP bond issue, just so we can capture the CPI increase each year that's offered
For our debt,
for our debt, just for the DSEP
the
bond.
DSEP bonds.
Correct.
All right, any questions? Can I have a motion and a second to approve the supplemental tax levy as presented?
So moved, Kamilovich.
Second, Baumstark.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan,
Aye.
Kamilevich,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Moon,
Aye.
Stefani,
Aye.
Supos.
Aye.
Okay, next, we have the 24087, adoption of a resolution authorizing a petition of Glenview School District 34 to withdraw from the True North Cooperative.
Thank you. I'll take that for a few moments. So before we consider the resolution and the petition, I wanted to just walk through for the board and the community and those who have been staying in sync with what we're doing here, some information. So, we'll get that up. So I just have 5 slides here that are really mostly review slides, and then one slide that'll just talk about some next steps. But as you all know, this is a topic that we have been discussing actually for nearly a year now. You're going to see that in the timeline in some subsequent slides. But just by way of review, we have shared on multiple occasions presentations at our board meetings. And I'm sorry, just had a glitch here. But at our board meetings, we have shared with you the history of District 34 and True North in terms of a relationship, our evolution of our school district's capacity to serve children with special needs in our school district, the financial impact of our current arrangement with the True North Cooperative, and our interest in ending its membership relationship with the True North organization. We've also updated on progress toward the intent to withdraw, the dates in the lower right-hand corner of the board meeting dates at which we discussed this. If you look just quickly at our timeline, it quite literally, from the time I had a conversation with Dr. Schneider at his office in Highland Park back in December of 2023, it's really been a full year on our progression toward the action that I'm asking you to consider this evening. There are several steps that are part of the withdrawal process from the cooperative. And this is the voluntary withdrawal process. We have completed the essential requirements thus far, basically through a third-party evaluation that has been shared with the cooperative and its member districts. We've done all of the required steps up until where we are this evening, where we're going to actually seek a formal resolution withdrawing from the cooperative. We do have a deadline to make that proclamation, and that's by the last day of this month, so we fall well within that time period. Based on your action this evening, then there will be communication with True North and all of the member districts indicating the board's wishes here formally. The next steps are that the member districts have 60 calendar days from the time they receive a copy of the resolution from this evening to vote on the question of whether or not to permit District 34 to cease its membership status with the cooperative. So basically what that means is each one of those member districts will have a board meeting that will have formal action taken in a very similar fashion to what we're doing here this evening. And then it's important to note here that it is a unanimous vote then from all of the member districts.
I just want to point out 17 other member districts.
So the answer in the affirmative to whether or not we can end our membership would require all 17 school districts individually to vote
In the
yes or no.
affirmative.
It's yea or nay, and it has to be unanimous
To be consensual.
to be part of the consensual process. Yeah, and there is another step there, which under next steps you can see. If by March 1st of 2025 that's not the case, there's a non-consensual withdrawal process which we can consider. And so that's in some respects a little more complicated because it's uncharted waters. There really hasn't been a school district that has gone through the non-consensual withdrawal process. And so that's being examined with our legal advisor in terms of what those specific next steps would be. This is just a foreshadow for you in the event that our attempt to leave through the consensual process is not successful. There is another avenue that we can take, and we'll be communicating more about specifically what that looks like.
Dr. Daly, there hasn't been a district who's left either with the consensual process either, right?
I believe there was a district,
Not under these current articles of agreement, though.
no, this was, I'm gonna say this was maybe 15 years ago. It was sometime when exiting didn't have, to your point, the same
About
criteria
300 steps,
as
yeah.
it is now. So, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I mean, the 17 member districts get to decide for themselves through a vote much like this one, whether to permit us to leave or not. And then once we know the answer to that question, we can consider the next step in the process as outlined in the Articles of Agreement. It's important to know that there are costs associated with departing. There are also assets that we are entitled to. So over the last month or so, there's been quite a bit of estimation work that has been taking place. So True North contracted with an accounting firm, Sikich,
At our cost.
thank you, to make some estimates about liabilities and assets. We, of course, wanted an independent verification of the work that Sikich conducted, and so we hired Baker Tilly to do basically the same activity and to see if they concurred with the liabilities and assets that were laid out by Sikich. And Baker Tilly did validate the estimates. I should say that these are estimates. And at the point at which we would actually leave, depending on what that date is, this estimation activity would have to be repeated because this estimation is using fiscal year '23 actuals. But for the purpose of estimation, I think this gives everyone a fairly good idea of what we're talking about here. So our total liabilities, our proportionate share of the total liabilities is estimated to be at about $2.1 million. In terms of assets that we are entitled to from the cooperative, that estimate is about $4.5 million. Now, the important caveat to note on the assets in particular is that as it's currently written, although I think there's quite a bit of room for discussion about this, the asset allocation would only be distributed at the point at which the cooperative dissolved.
Within the next 20 years.
Within 20 years.
Within 20 years, yeah.
If it never dissolves, we would never see the assets.
Right.
Right.
So that's a separate line of inquiry we're pursuing with our, legal team. But I think the most important thing here to understand is that we have an estimated liability of $2.1 million, which would have to be paid. About $4.5 million in assets that is possible. And our annual membership for the 25-26 school year is estimated at $542,000. And you can see on the bottom, we've just created a chart that really just imposes CPI year over year on the membership fee that we're paying now. So, you can see what that looks like over time. That's a membership fee that we're paying for, and I'll say this once just emphatically rather than repeating it. We currently have 0 students enrolled in any True North program. So this is a membership fee that we're paying to be members of the cooperative. No students are currently being served. Our services have diminished to virtually nothing over time. And this is just the cost of being a membership, being part of their membership structure. So you can see that even the liability of $2.1 million pays itself back in just a few short years.
While we're doing the work that True North truly believes in, educating their students in your home district in the least restrictive environment.
So anyway, I just wanted to do this more so by way of review. No one should find any of this information new except for maybe a little bit on slide 4 about foreshadowing the next steps and then the dollar implications since the last time we met and discussed this publicly. So it's my recommendation that the board pursue its withdrawal by approving the resolution this evening. We'll wait and see what the other member districts have to say, and then we can talk some more about the next phase of exiting possibilities.
One last question, is the liability to be paid at once upon withdrawal? Is that the expectation?
It's written as such,
And no
yes.
flexibility in that whatsoever?
Not the way it's written.
I think there's flexibility in everything that's written, just so you know.
Yeah, Play with that a little bit. Yeah.
So the unanimous consent is for the consensual withdrawal. Do we think that's one of the things that was changed in the past 15 years since the last one exited, or do we think they got unanimous?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way this is structured is, and the True North superintendent has even said this, that any revenue that the cooperative loses as a result of our withdrawal simply gets passed on to the other member districts. And so, to the extent that that was the case, when this last district did it, I don't know what the language was necessarily at the time, but.
You can review the previous articles of incorporation that are on there, I think, and you can see, what people had to go through before. I just want to point out, within the articles of incorporation, to amend the articles of incorporation, it only takes a 2/3 vote of the leadership council.
Yeah, I was racking my brains for something analogous requiring unanimous consent, having trouble coming up with something. I mean, a constitutional amendment isn't unanimous. The UN Security Council isn't unanimous. It's a bit much, frankly.
It's a hurdle that seems almost impossible to meet,
Yeah. Well,
considering, if people are only considering financial ramifications. If they really took the True North thought process of what's best for the students, it seems like
Agreed.
it should be an easy discussion.
yeah.
One quick question. How did the 11.7, 11.5 proportionate share calculations get assigned if there are 17 districts?
So, within the Articles of Incorporation, the administrative costs are split up based on your total enrollment of your school district. So we are 11.5%, we are 4,500 students approximately.
We have 4,300.
So
yeah.
there are school districts that are in a cooperative that might have 400 students. So they pay a proportionate share of that.
Regardless of enrollment
Regardless of enrollment, yes.
and service utilization.
Correct. It's a straight calculation of number of students. So as you'll see, there's 2 high school districts that have more students than us. We're the 3rd highest payer, I believe. 225, I believe, is second, and maybe New Trier is number 1.
And then the CPI extrapolation is not actually historically how the liabilities or the membership fees have been calculated in recent years. Is that correct?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I mean,
remember
they
seeing
are
some
what they are,
figures-
but-
I remember seeing some figures that
It's been
seem
going
to
up
have
by more than
changed
CPI.
significantly.
Yeah,
on a
this was
annual
just more of
basis.
an exercise to show that there's no scenario under which we see the membership fee declining. It's only going to increase. And there was a time too, I mean, did we make an installment on capital improvements at all, or did that
No,
never happen?
They ended up taking that first phase of construction from fund balance.
From fund balance? But the cooperative can also make assessments in addition to this.
So these are floor numbers, these are minimum.
Yes.
before, yeah.
These are operating levies, and I think they could have capital assessment requests too.
Yes.
right?
Correct. Well, and, as we point out to them numerous times at meetings, Jim's our representative, and sometimes I've filled in, just as we made $2 million of efficiencies in our budget this year, they have opportunities to make those efficiencies also. I have not seen any pushback from the administration to actually try and cut their expenses.
And perhaps maybe just a comment. This type of arrangement, and I mean membership without service, doesn't necessarily seem aligned to the original founding principles of True North as a cooperative, if I'm misunderstanding or misinterpreting it. And it seems as though it has been I'll call it contemporary shift in how True North operates relative to service and value delivered to students and to the member districts who utilize the services, and doesn't necessarily honor or recognize the efforts that have made by any district, ours or others, for the service of those students in the same way. Maybe an oversimplification, but
No, it's not. I don't know that it was ever contemplated, quite honestly, that a member district would reach a point like we have, where we're servicing to the greatest extent possible our children in our district, and in some cases, in many cases, their own home school. And so this is, I think in some ways, unique that way. But the fact that there's been really no consideration for a school district reaching this point is confusing.
And that was a conclusion also reached by an independent professional,
That's
Dr.
right.
Scipio, with the assessment,
Yes.
such that we are in fact delivering to the needs of the students in a comparable, if not exchangeable fashion to what True North would deliver.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was put together 70 years ago, right? I mean, a lot's changed.
Yes.
And one would think that views on how it's taken forward should have been changed. This kind of arrangement almost assuredly made a ton of sense 70
Undoubtedly.
years ago.
Yeah, when
and so
capacities
probably
were-
no one was ever thinking, oh, how would you exit it? But as we've all learned, I think through, hard experience in our many various lives, I mean, you have to think about this stuff, even edge cases, when you enter into these kind of activities. And so it would be nice if True North leadership would share that view that the world has changed and, common sense should weigh out here. But
And as the structure of the leadership council is 18 different representatives from different school districts and 3 superintendents from 3 different regions, that constantly change every year or 2 years. You could see how something as easy as the Articles of Agreement being something that can't change over time, or
Yeah.
change to make it hard to leave.
That's right.
I do think the scale of our school, though, makes it possible too, right? I think it's the biggest districts within the cooperative that have the wherewithal to do it themselves.
And the capacity.
And the
yes.
capacity, whereas like some of the smaller schools might look at what we're doing
Oh,
and say,
100%.
we can't do that.
yeah, no, 100% agreed. And of course, that's a difference in 70 years, right? Like, it was a much different. We were still, certainly within the first 20 or 30 years, because we consolidated, bigger than a lot of the other, schools in True North. But it had value, but that was half a century ago.
It just makes sense for us at this time to continue in the path we've moved forward.
Absolutely.
Are there any discussions or?
Besides what Jared
Questions?
did.
If not, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the resolution as presented.
So moved, Kamalevich.
Second, Baumstark.
Gabby, may I have a roll call vote?
Dolan,
Aye.
Kamalevich,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Moon,
Aye.
Stefani, Supos,
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Before we move on, I do want to make a big thank you to, we've gotten to this point where we approved a resolution to leave, has taken hours and hours of work of our administration and our legal team and our board. And I appreciate all the hard work and diligence you've done so far to take us through this portion. Thank you. Next, we'll move to the 24088 Vision 2030 Call to Action School Board Resolution of Support. This is directly from our IASB organization, correct?
Among others. So, Vision 2030 is basically an advocacy framework for public schools in the state of Illinois. There were a lot of constituent groups that were a part of creating the vision, the Illinois Association of School Administrators, school principals, IASB, the School Business Officials Organization. Many organizations came together on this. And really what school districts are being asked to do is endorse the fundamental principles of this advocacy framework, which include mandate relief. The Illinois School Code has doubled since 2000. Contained within the school code are a whole host of mandates, many of which are unfunded mandates. So this is really a public and joint statement saying we need to better fund the programming that is being espoused in the state. It's future-focused learning, shared accountability, predictable school funding, and it's really has just a few key goals that I'd like to state publicly: keeping students safe, keeping high-quality educators in front of students, enhancing post-secondary success for children, and improving the measurement of what's working. There are still debates raging across the state about what appropriate types of measurements look like, what gives us good information about the teaching and learning process, but what is also manageable and tolerable for students at the same time. We don't want to be spending all of our time assessing. We also want to actually be teaching children. So anyway, these are the key components of the plan, and many school districts from across the state are adopting this resolution. I would ask you to consider doing the same.
Any questions or comments?
Was it like 700 unfunded mandates in the
Yeah.
past 15 to 20 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out Article 10 of the Illinois Constitution states the state has a primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. Thank you to the Glenview members of the community that finance 87% of it with property taxes. All right, can I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution?
So moved, Moon. Second, Stefani.
Gabby, may I have a roll call vote?
Kamalevich,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Moon,
Aye.
Stefani,
Aye.
Supos, Nelson,
Aye.
Dolan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks. Next, we have our discussion section, which is the potential residential development that's going on in Glenview.
Yes, thank you. Eric's going to walk us through a couple of slides here, but the site that we're talking about is 1900 East Lake, which is the old Pearson site. Many of us probably pass that going around town. It's been vacant for some time now. There was a proposed development just a couple of years ago that did not move forward. There is renewed interest by a developer that's been working with the village on some potential single-family home construction. So like any available parcel of this size in the community, Signode being the other one, the school district always has a very vested interest in what this brings, both in terms of new revenue, but also in terms of children yield. And so we pay very close attention to how this would impact our enrollment and the capacities at our school building. So I guess with that introduction, Eric, you want to share a little more granular detail?
Yes, thank you. So, as Dr. Deli mentioned, this is this was just proposed to the village on the 11th, a couple days ago. And that's when we were made aware of the information that the developer submitted to the village and the report that the village staff did on their own. And here what I'm going to go over is some of the developer's information and some of our thoughts that we've developed over the last couple days. So this is 60 single-family home, 18 two-bedroom and 42 three-bedroom homes. These are actually relatively tight lots, I would say. And they're saying that they're going to market toward empty nesters over the next couple of years. Their developer report said that there would be a 21 K-8 student yield coming to public schools. There's an estimate of another couple kids, and they think that may attend private schools in the area. The estimated properties, and so I'm sorry, just a couple, I would say a year or two ago, Kevin and I engaged the demographer that does our student enrollment, and also with 225, and we geocoded all of Glenview, and we looked at every different style of home that we have here and looked at the student yield, because another development that was proposed was talking about what age the students might be, and we sort of proved that actually a two-bedroom apartment could yield high school students just the same. So we came up with, depending on this style of home, what the student yield would be, K-8, and then 9 through 12. So we used that study to come up with our estimate that we would see actually about 32 students. So a little bit different than what they're saying, but not too far off. Estimated property taxes, the developer said we can expect $449,000 sort of after they've been fully developed, and we currently get about $190,000 from that property. In my estimation, it's more in line with about $400,000 using the levy tool we use with our rates, et cetera. So not too far off, but a little bit lower than what the developer said. Cost to educate students, OEPP, operating expense per pupil. They cited that ISB said the cost to educate a student in FY23 was $18,841. As you may be familiar with this number at this point, our audit says $20,388. So a little difference there again, and so we're working on a trend here where, you know, if you wanted to estimate the cost for us to educate the kids coming out of this development, we think there's more kids and a higher cost. Impact fees are what they call a donation, and as soon as they develop the piece of the parcel and get occupancy, then we would get triggered to have a payment from the developer made to us. This is so that we can educate the student while that home takes its time making it on its way to our tax rolls. So what they've estimated is that it would be $295,000 in total upon completion of them.
I'd like to point out, though, as our previous board member, Mike Corman, always pointed out, that impact fees haven't increased in over 20 years.
Great point. Like I say, they intend to market these homes to empty nesters over the course of 2-3 years. And then I'll mention that the staff did work with another consultant to analyze the developer's report. And I won't go through all of their comments. They did point out our OEPP is $20,000, a couple other points. So while we've only had a couple days to go through this, we do intend on summarizing these bullets and getting them over to the village so that they have on record some of our thoughts based on the developer's report.
Thanks. It did pass the New Development Commission the other night.
Yes.
Just a quick question. What was the rationale to suggest that they're going to be marketing new 2- and 3-bedroom homes in Glenview to empty nesters?
They got first floor suites as part of it. I'm pretty sure the Glen was going to be marketed to empty nesters
They
too.
were, the Glen was definitely thought to be towards a different group than ended up moving in there, and that impacted the schools heavily. So, I mean, there's a history to this, and developers aren't always right on as to who ends up buying. So I think your skepticism is warranted.
Well, we have
If that's what it is.
a 50% underestimate relative to student yield, 21 versus 32, okay? A 10% overestimate in terms of tax value to the district. A miscalculation of the OEPP. Just curious as to what their number and impact look like, our number using real data look like, and perhaps that can be summarized in a response in terms of comments to the board.
Yeah,
to the
it will be.
village.
I mean,
Okay.
our job at this point was basically to respond to the information that was provided to us. So we've cited for you and for the public some of the differences here. I don't know that we mentioned, but as it would stand now, the schools impacted by this would be Lyon and Pleasant Ridge. And so, you know, I can tell you that in my experience, both the number 21 and 32 are both wrong. It's just a matter of, you know, what is the right number? What does that student yield wind up looking like distributed over, you know, a K-5 setting? And, you know, the number presuming some form of an equalized distribution of what grade level those children would be in could be absorbed by us. I mean, that we have the ability to do that. Certainly, it would get more problematic if, for instance, I doubt this would happen, but, you know, 90% of whatever the number is are first graders or something. But
Yeah, but I'm just thinking with all of the discrete variables that we're facing right now, right? So, the referendum that did not go through, and the issues we're trying to solve with that in terms of services. We have some beautiful new facilities, but let's, not take those for granted. I think this is just one of those areas where a thoughtful and informed and evidence-based response can be very helpful in framing the village and also the developer with the assumptions that are made. Because at the end of the day, of course, we're going to accept the students, and they will be well served by the community. It's part of why I don't see a community new development being attractive to empty nesters, and more so for individuals who are trying to get their family and their students into
First-time home buyers.
our District 34 schools.
I mean, their price points were 800 to 1.2 million, I think, too, so. I would say, the previous, development, I think, had 110 townhomes,
Mm-hmm.
and that was too much. I mean, this is gonna be developed. I'd love to see a commercial property there, or a senior living, that'd be great, but that's not gonna happen. Like you said, James, it's important we get our message across to the village before they fully approve it. This
And
turnaround
we
for
will.
the new development commission time-wise was really hard for us to make any kind of discussion at that point.
Yes.
So what does that mean? That so it got approved with the.
New
that-
development commission?
Yeah, and then what?
The village board still has to approve it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But I mean, they approved it, there's gonna be something built there.
Yeah. Indulge me here on the impact fees. So, like, if the impact fee is 300K, is that essentially saying if we go with our estimate of 32 kids, like roughly that's about 10K per kid? Is that how that works?
I don't think
roughly?
that's how it works.
That's not how it works.
It's just a
okay.
straight calculation. They haven't increased those fees in over 20 years.
No. I mean, as it ends up.
Oh.
Here's 30 kids, and also you get
Well, they say 21.
300K. Well, I get it.
They say 21, and so that,
So if I'm thinking about that right, though, the impact fees represent 50% of what we actually need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's
That's a fair way of looking at it.
yeah. Okay, so that's blatantly unfair.
in the OEP, we're about to receive our audit any day now,
Yeah.
so that OEPP number will go up. And just to mention, we've asked for impact fees up front before from other developers. I
So-
think that's a
yeah.
worthwhile consideration to ask.
If they had increased impact fees by CPI over the last 20 years, we'd
Right,
probably
yeah.
be pretty close to the number.
Just feels like a vector of discussion.
This is probably a really dumb question, I should probably know the answer to by now, but, the 225 is probably doing the same analysis, right?
They are, and actually, they've updated the study. They're waiting any day now for an update they did.
Can we look at their numbers? What they're-
He has promised me he will share that. He
Okay,
did it
cool.
for both Glenview and Northbrook.
I should know this.
Because he's interested, obviously, in the feeders coming into his building and for things like this, so he's waiting any day, RJ.
Okay,
is
because
not
we
yet.
could compare and see what we asked.
Yes, absolutely.
Do we know when this shows up with the village board?
It might be at the next meeting, I don't know.
Okay.
We can check the agenda.
I mean, because this totally sounds like a recap of what happened with the Glen.
It
I mean,
does.
they were telling
Yeah.
everyone, it's gonna be older families, maybe some high school students, but it's not gonna be younger families. I was one of the younger families that moved in with no kids and proceeded to go ahead and have a family. And I mean, developments like that can be very attractive to professionals that wanna buy their first home. So, they
Yeah.
come in, they're a brand-new house, and, maybe it's smaller, but that might be appealing to some families, so.
I mean, on the plus side, there's no TIF associated with this, so we will see property taxes. And it's not gonna be built out all at once. It's gonna be over a 3 or 4 year staggered timeline, so.
But-
I agree with what you're saying, Diane. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be full with kids.
I think it will, and it'll probably be a lovely place for people to live, but, I think we have to be realistic about how many kids are gonna be there.
Yeah, cause it's
Well-
great schools, right?
Yeah, and I build off that point. I mean, virtually every real estate assumption in the Glen, both commercial and residential, was incorrect. You think we would learn from our mistakes here?
Right. I just think it's an underestimate.
It's ridiculous.
So we'll prepare our report, we'll
Yeah.
share it with the village. and they'll probably approve it, so.
On a non-school point, I pity the poor urban planner's got to figure out the new traffic flow.
Oh, you can look at it, it's
Is
interesting.
it exciting?
It's gonna make it a lot more dense over there, cause you're.
There's
right
gonna be
between
one
a bunch
light
of
now.
developments.
Okay,
Coming in and out.
I hope it's better.
I mean, you got tall trees right there, and then, you know, the Glen's kinda on the other side.
Yeah, that'll be the only entrance and exit for tall trees and the new
It's
development.
gonna be exciting.
You have tracks, too.
And there's tracks in there, there's all kinds of stuff.
You know who really likes that? Empty nesters.
The idea. A lot of traffic. How about buses driving
I mean,
around?
it's not that there won't be any empty nesters, I just don't think it's gonna be all empty nesters.
Maybe they mean empty nesters include people who haven't had their kids yet. Because then it would make a lot more sense.
I mean, I can do a diagram of the homes in the Glen and how many of those homes that they said would not have kids. I mean, our whole entire block was
Yeah.
full of children, small children.
Yeah, we built a TIA, it was full the first day.
Yep.
All right, great, that's,
There you have it.
just some, all right.
My watch is telling us what time it is.
Well, she wants me to move faster. Next, we have audience comments. Becca, do we have any audience comments?
We do not.
Okay. We'll move along to our report section. We have the number 1 FOIA report, the number 2 construction change order, the number 3 referendum expense report, the number 4 monthly budget report, the number 5 current year financial projections, and the number 6 student enrollment projections. Very timely. Are there any questions or any clarifications needed? All right. Any other business?
I've got one.
Yeah.
So you all will recall at the last board meeting, Dr. Dolan and I had talked about the board self-evaluation, strategic goals, and going forward. Just as by way of a quick update, Dr. Dolan and I had a very productive conversation with Dr. Deli, which actually makes me realize I really should have just completed my PhD. So,
Feeling a little left out.
yeah,
There was too many doctors in there,
actually, I feel intellectually overpowered in these conversations, just to be
Fair
clear.
enough.
So, yeah. So very, very productive conversation, and both James and I will, as a next step, be following up with board members one-on-one to help sharpen the pencil a little bit in terms of guidance we'll give to the administration as they take that forward, and Dr. Deli has some actions too, probably after the holiday, but we'll see how everyone's schedules look.
Can I
like.
ask
So-
that you guys continue to think about this as an ongoing thing so
Mhm.
that we can build off of what you're generating right now?
Agreed.
Thanks. Any other business? If not, we're adjourned. Happy holidays.
Happy